Welcome to Wired to Lead, the podcast where neuroscience meets leadership. Hi, I'm Julia Lefevre, and each week we're going to explore how our brains impact our behavior and how we can rewire our brains so that we can lead with clarity, confidence, and impact. Are you ready? Let's dive in. Well, hi, everyone. I am so excited to welcome you all to the podcast. We have Lacy Gunnoe with us today, and he is the Director of Wellbeing at Camp Southern Ground. And so, Lacy, I'm going to let you tell our listeners a little bit more about what you do. But hello, welcome.
Thank you, Julia, and thank you for, it's probably been at least a year of your content. It's life-changing and team transformation 101. So just thank you for the content and the coaching well before the podcast. It's so exciting to see the podcast come out so the content can get delivered faster to people that are really leaning on you for the coaching, and I'm one of them. So thank you for that. And like you said, Camp Southern Ground, this is a nonprofit founded by the Zach Brown from the Zach Brown Band. And if I talk about
clip, like I feel like there should be music playing or something.
You know, you can play Chicken Fried there. That last verse really hits home with the veteran community. He's got a lot of great songs. And, you know, think about Zach. A lot of the songs is replicated in his life. Like, he does believe love is the remedy. And when he was 14, he was a camp kid growing up in North Georgia. And people ask, when did Camp Southern Ground start as a nonprofit? And when did we buy the 411 acres and do all those things? Well, that was 2011. So 2011 is when Zach actually broke ground and started things, but it really began when he was a 14-year-old camp kid, future camp counselor, whenever camp changed his life. And he knew when he would get older, when he was an adult, he would, start a camp much like he experienced as a kid. And I love that the impact that camp had on him is the impact he wanted to create in the world. So we have Camp Southern Ground, 411 acres right here in Fayetteville, Georgia. And during the summer, it's a summer camp. So they're ramping up right now. 800 kids from all over are going to be coming to this camp, 100 each week over those 8 weeks. And the amazing thing is, 40% of these kids are non-typically developed neurodivergent children. And Zach, loves to make sure that people understand, especially kids at a young age, inside those gates, that everyone's different. That's not good or bad. It's just different. So everyone's included. It's an inclusion model. And the magic really happens outside the gates from what they learn inside the gates with our amazing staff and facilitators there at Camp Southern Ground. So Zach built this thing. And then in the fall and spring, kids are in school. So he was asked, well, what are you going to do with this amazing camp, with amazing facilities? And if you go on YouTube, you can look at the facilities. Some of them are on HGTV because it's just amazing. And he was like, I want to serve veterans. There's a debt out there to their sacrifice that they've committed to and made in this world. And I want to pay them back. I want to serve veterans. So we now have 3 different programs where we're able to serve veterans and their families and active duty service members. We have first the Wear Path program that turns struggle into strength. This is all about post-traumatic growth. It's a week-long, no-cost program. It's absolutely transforming lives and in some case saving them. And there's roughly 9 locations across the nation. We are one of the hosts of that program. We're very proud of that program. Dr. Jen Selke does an outstanding job with that program. The transition program, which is vital because when veterans lose that camaraderie, they need a community. They also need to know how to take care of themselves, which a lot of the stuff that you teach comes into play. And we focus on their Clifton strengths through Gallup to make sure that they understand who they are outside the uniform. We want to make sure that these strengths are internal and it doesn't have to be attached to a rank, a uniform, a flight suit, or some special mission that you used to do. And it's all about what happens next. And last but not least, we have a family program. We're wanting to do more for the families because it's not just a veteran that transitions out or who struggles, as you know. So we have a Warrior Family Camp. We run 5 of those a year. Those are amazing where the families get together, focus on each other, set down the mission, and the mission becomes the family. You don't wash dishes. You have an amazing time and kind of reconnect as a unit. So those 3 programs are amazing. The first 2, Where We Can Wear Path, are free. And the last one is a $200 deposit that you can get back at the end of the weekend. So we're blessed to be able to do it. and running Warrior Week, it's a dream come true for me. Getting out of the military, I had actually been here in 2018 when they were first starting it to kind of help get it running as a consultant type participant. And it's just a blessing to come back full circle and be here to serve full time now.
Wow. There are so many things I want to ask you about what you just told us, but uh, let's go way back. And you just mentioned getting out of the military. You came from the
That's right.
military, so tell us a little bit about the leadership journey that you've been on and that has brought you to this point.
Excellent. That's a great question. And just under 23 years, Air Force officer, pilot, and had an amazing journey. And when you ask me to tell you about my leadership journey, I immediately think of my leadership because the biggest
Mm,
takeaway is from the amazing people that have believed in me and led me and had all those courageous conversations and also just led the way, by empowering me and bringing the best out of me along the way. So if I look back on that journey, just the highlight wave tops would be a college kid, um, going to West Virginia University, came from a trailer down by the river, divorced home, all those things, and really trying to make my own way, to kind of leave that world, appreciating all the hard work and the family that believed in me there. But in ROTC in college, I was surrounded by people that believed in me more than I believed in myself. And I
wow.
borrowed their belief to kind of, get through that season. And then they believed in me enough to throw me a flight suit one day. And then so I was in pilot training, and man, I definitely did not belong there. I mean, I was, whether it was my background, my grades, or which were okay, but not enough to be there. I was a marketing major, and I'm surrounded by engineers and people that wanted to be pilots their entire life,
Yeah.
and I was better for it because my circle got so much bigger. And if you're in a place where it requires growth by immersion, I was around all these smart, amazing men and women that challenged me, but also inspired me. And people that were in my leadership, in charge of me, they believed in me. I mean, I was thinking about quitting because, man, is this really for me? They believed in me. And so, made it through pilot training in my first, 3 to 4 years in the military. Man, it was a you know, culture shock. And I'm so grateful for all the leaders, the captain and majors at that time that believed in me and got this opportunity to go back to pilot training to be an instructor pilot and pay it forward. Now I get to go and teach, train, and mentor all these young pilots. And what an opportunity to lead them. And, at the time, it was a lot of fear, sarcasm, and ridicule to make sure you're doing the right things. And for me, I wanted to inspire them. I wanted to get in there and talk about what they get to do every day and don't miss this opportunity. And so I kind of became this motivational guy, and so it was an honor to be able to serve, you know, in this position where I'm leading those that they've worked their whole life for this opportunity. It's like Eminem and 8 Mile, this one opportunity, this one shot. And
Right.
then once I left there, just the wave tops, I went, and became, back in the tanker, my tanker community. And while I was there, I held different leadership roles, sending people downrange, deploying. Also became instructor pilot at KC 135, which I loved. A lot of deployments, leading small teams, small crews, on a major weapon system was, a lot of fun. And when in 2016, I had become an evaluator pilot, all these things in my leadership journey, all these milestones. And I had a choice that I could go back and become, an instructor in ROTC. So my whole life has been about people believing in me enough to where I eventually believed in myself enough to lead my own self to become the leader of others. And this is a pivotal milestone where I chose to give up flying to go back and teach ROTC. So when I saw the young man or young woman that felt like they didn't belong there, I could say, "Hey, look, I didn't belong there either." And I showed up
I
like a
was
Backstreet
where
Boy,
you
Timberlake.
are. Yeah.
Exactly. With, like the earrings looking like, Timberlake and Eminem combined, and to believe in them and so pay it forward. So what an honor to spend 4 years teach training, mentoring the next generation of officers who I'm still in contact, a lot of them now that flying their own aircraft. One's in the B-52, one's in F-22. And it's great getting those updates. And then, because it's 23 years that we're covering in like 7 minutes at the
Yeah.
end, I became the inspector general for a joint base, a guard unit that I absolutely love, where my best friends are still to this day. And anyway, that inspector general role was much more serious, running nuclear exercises, a lot of compliance type stuff, but also helping a lot of people. And it was a great way to end the career with great people, surrounded by, people I'd spent a long time with. So I learned a lot of lessons, but I think the biggest takeaway was what a blessing it is to be believed in enough so you can believe in yourself, so you can then believe in others to lead them to what they want to do in their life, not what you want them to do, but what is best for them and their choices. So that's the big picture.
Yeah, I mean this whole time you're talking about the experiences that you had that of other people believing in you so that you could borrow their belief in a way until it became your own. And really
Right.
that's a really picturesque way of explaining what happens literally in our brains. Because what we're learning, what neuroscientists are telling us, is that you don't you can't just start believing in yourself if you haven't had an experience of someone else believing in you. It's a
Wow.
scientific fact. And so when we say, even when we tell people, like, you just need to give yourself grace or give yourself, just believe in yourself, love yourself, that is an impossible task until we have an experience with someone else who can show us, who can do it for us. And it's just the way our brains work. Our brains are created to learn through our experiences. And your story is such a powerful example of how that plays out in life. Because, like you said, you went and you're like, I don't know if I'm supposed to be here, but when
Hmm.
experience after experience is telling you different, it starts to sink in. It really is a beautiful example.
Thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
beautiful story. To your point, um, when I first graduated pilot training and became officially a pilot in the Air Force, the first place I went to was back to my elementary school at in Talcott, West Virginia, and then I started speaking to schools throughout the year because when you tell that story, I didn't believe in myself when I was younger and in school in their position, and even in college, and then in pilot training, and then taking this aircraft around the world. And I kept on telling myself that story. I'm just a small town boy from West Virginia, and my parents were divorced. $8,000 a year is all my dad made, and I don't belong here. But I looked at my life, people that had poured into me, believed in me, and after flying around the world and new challenges come my way, you can be kind of like that person says, you know what? You're right. I am from a trailer. I own all of that. And guess what? Look at how far I've come. And then if I can get here, where else can I go?
Yeah.
So, you just got to get the reps and sets in to start to see the results. And then you start to believe the story on paper versus the one that's in your head. And so that's kind of supporting your point of you have to be able to see it now. The only the way to get there faster is by the belief that you see in others that exist as example of what's possible.
Mhm.
So I believe that I love that it's science, and I love that it can happen to anybody if it can happen to me.
It can. And the thing that I I'm so glad you brought up that so many of us come out of our our childhood history with these core beliefs, and those get lodged in our subconscious. Most of the time we don't even know they're there until we start paying attention. Things like, well, this was my background and my experiences in the world told me if I live in a trailer and my dad doesn't make very much, then I'm never going anywhere. So again, those lodge in our subconscious, and we can't tell ourselves that's not true. We need other experiences that will tell us. And so it's just it's such a message of hope, really, because anyone has the potential. Your brain is created to write new stories. It really is. We don't have to accept the stories that have been given to us. And so, no matter if I'm a farm girl and grew up in Southwest Kansas in the dirty, dusty fields with no trees. And um, if you would have told me that I'm doing the things I'm doing now, I would have just thought, what? There's no way. But because I have similarly had people that have told me, you have something to offer the world. Get out there and offer it. It really has changed some of those deep beliefs.
A lot of the people that have adopted their beliefs from their parents or not even having parents from the world, their prefrontal cortex is probably not fully developed, right? And then you go into the military for whether it's 5, 10, 15, even 20 years. When you transition out, and this is something that we addressed in Warrior Week, all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute, who am I? What do I believe? And that's where we use the Clifton strengths to really help them understand, what they do well. But also, we do a lot of values modules to be able to help them understand what do you value, not what your parents did, not what the core values the military offered you, but now what? Like now what do you get to recreate yourself? And I used to tell this story for 30 minutes about you need to curate the narrative of your life. You can write a new story and it's all up to you. And we see a lot of folks get really excited based off their strengths, their values, learning a little bit about who they can be and what's next. And to your point, write a beautiful new story about what's possible in their life. So that's the value of Warrior Week, and it's the value of what you offer when people have that awareness and understand that change can happen, and it starts in the brain.
Yeah. So you said that Warrior Week is a transitional program for active duty, different veterans, even maybe have you um, like firefighters or people that even, does it serve that demographic too, or is it all military?
So currently, Warrior Week is all military,
Okay.
and there's a wide spectrum. We really try to focus on those that are the service members that are getting ready to transition, in transition, or just recently transitioned. But the Warrior Path program, to your point, and I love that you brought it up, serves first responders because think about the trauma, the things that our first responders and the critical mission that they have out there. So the Warrior Path program is for them if they're listening. And Warrior Week, we want to build on this amazing program we have, but for now, we are strictly for the veteran or the service member that's about to transition.
Absolutely. So that Warrior Week is this transition for people going from one identity in a way to having to recreate what's life going to be like now.
Yeah.
And I even imagine that even for you in a really successful military career, that transitioning into civilian life brought with it some challenges. I'm just curious if it was just smooth sailing for you or if there were some challenges that you faced.
I would love to be the best example of the perfect transition. I don't think the perfect transition exists out there. And one
Yeah.
thing I've learned at camp from the past 2 years is that everyone's an individual. Everyone has an individual mindset. They're living their own experience based off of some past, some current, and some future, maybe anxieties that, could potentially happen. And everyone, may or may not have family. They may or may not be going back to school. Um, they may or may not have to work. There's so many factors that come into play there. But for me, it was challenging. I had a 6 month old, so we're not sleeping much. My wife had to let go of her medical device job, very lucrative career to transition to a different state, start over. We don't have, or we didn't have at the time, too much community or social circles. So there was a lot of change, and that's hard when you're not a veteran. That's hard for everyone. And transition can be a diagnosis. It can be so many things in the world. So it's not easy. And that's why we have this program. The problem to solve or the opportunity to understand is how do we transition well? How do we help veterans and service members transition to be able to thrive in their life? And we do that by focusing on 6 areas. So you said it perfectly. You said your identity. And so we focus on career and purpose, which is attached to that identity. And when you focus on this area of well being, if you grabbed it and pulled up, every area of your well being would come up. Gallup even states that people will mourn the loss of a job um, longer than that of a family member, to include a spouse. Right? I don't know how that marriage was like in
Wow.
general, but
Yeah.
think about your identity, think about what you do every day, and think about what you love to do. And now think about whether it's the military or, I don't know, professional athlete, and you have to hang up that uniform and you transition into a normal world. What is that going to be like? So we focus on what doesn't change. We focus on what things you're naturally good at that you can invest time, energy, and attention to be most fulfilled in life. And it's not about the money. It's about being purpose driven. It's about whether you can drive your kids to school or not. It's about, are you a part of something bigger than yourself? And you do a great job of talking about the relationships and the values, the meaning in life, which helps. So career and purpose is huge. Number two, we focus on social relationships. Do you have 3 to 5 people that you can rely on? And if not, we want to help build those social connections for you. We have a social well-being construct where you have roommates, and we intentionally and sequentially build relationships during your week with us, with veterans together in a group. Also financial, right? Look, moving to a different state, insurance costs a lot in Georgia compared to where I retired out of. There's so many things that are taxed. You have to look at your paycheck a couple times to like, wait a minute, what happened here? And it's because you're not getting those benefits of the military, right?
Yeah.
So we do training on that, and not to just save all the money and pay your bills, but like, are you investing in experiences with those that you love to live out your purpose for longer? And community, not just being safe where you live, but are you a part of your community? Do you contribute to your community? And we have one guy that's a mayor of his community now, which he does a lot of contributions. Physical well-being, we have an 11-acre organic farm. We have this anti-inflammatory nutrient-dense diet that they experience all week, followed by
Wow.
a walk after every meal, which is amazing. And starting every meal with gratitude, right, to prime the experience and share. So everything we do that, or even the emotional well-being of learning that there's more than happy, mad, and sad, that we can give vocabulary and identify even more emotions, and the deeper that we go with ourselves, the deeper we can go with others. So every aspect of well-being is what we coach them on, so they can show up in their personal life and professional life well in the civilian world. Hopefully there's still going to be ups and downs, as you know, and but it's people like you also putting out the content that explores conflict, that explores burnout, because it's better. Like the veterans, we're going to help everybody else. We're not going to help ourselves.
Yeah.
And my early meetings with you and starting to talk through that helped me realize, like, I'm that generation that we just, we do for everybody else, we don't do for ourselves. Goonies never say die. And we end up isolated and alone and burn out, and no one knows. They all think that we're good. And veterans, they love people so much, but it feels selfish to take care of yourself.
Absolutely. I love several things. First of all, what you're giving your veterans you're giving them experiences. So you're not just giving them lectures of all these things. You're giving them experiences to live live through what it's like to have a meal that's healthy, what it's like to live, going for walks, what it's like to live with people and connecting, what it's like to live through the financial training and so on. And so I just want to say, keep doing that. I think that is amazing. And then I just also love that it's a holistic process, that you're treating the all parts of them, because we all are all of those parts. And so that, yeah, I guess I'm just curious, what one of those was the most challenging for you as a veteran transitioning out, and or continues to be? I mean, again, these are just
Yeah,
human things. They're not,
yeah.
unfortunately, they're not just limited to those of you
You
who have
know,
been in the military.
you among others has helped me with a little bit with vulnerability, and I want to look cool, and I want to say all the right things, and I'm pretty polished with what I say. I know that because I say it a lot, and I'm very proud of what I do.
Mhm.
Um, so I will say that I'm not gonna say I'm terrible at something. I want to be positive and forward thinking to say that I'm challenged at boundaries. So when I read your content and even in our conversations, setting boundaries is very hard. I used to think maybe it's just I'm a recovering people pleaser, but I love to serve, and I want to move the needle in everyone's life, and I don't want to let anyone down. Whether that's from childhood or just my time in the military or the person that I am, it shows up in my strengths as well.
Mhm.
But at the end of the day, boundaries was very hard. I wanted to succeed. I wanted to have that same level of success that I did in the military, and as I transitioned to the civilian world. And there's a lot of ambiguity and gray space, and I would try to figure things out, and my family would suffer. Much like when your career and purpose goes down, like I think everything probably comes down to the same way it goes up. Um, and just not setting those boundaries with work and overdoing things there. It took away from my family a little bit, which, I wanted to, we always say it's my number one priority, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so that started showing up, and that was really hard to recognize and for it to sink in. And my wife did an amazing job of reminding me and encouraging me in hard conversations.
Yeah.
And so I think that was the hardest thing, was probably putting my identity more in work, not in my faith, which I should have a little bit more. And I'm realizing that now. And I just wanted to be successful. And I didn't know what it looked like on the outside. And some of those ups and downs are starting to level out a little bit. I got some great mentors, and even here recently, just really connecting, which is what you teach to some people to understand it's okay to not have everything figured out immediately. And the burnout piece, right? And the problem is, I would probably keep going until I fell out, unlike burnout. So, which is a problem in itself. So I would say boundaries, and yeah, I think boundaries was the biggest one.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. I think that's really common. I am imagining most people who are listening to this, if it's a leadership sort of podcast, and there's high performers out there, and it is really difficult to say no, or, your positive experiences of people believing in you were so instrumental, and it felt good. And so sometimes when that's our story, we get addicted to doing the things that get us praise and accolades and kudos. And so it I love that you said you're making connections now where those what I heard you saying, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but
Hmm.
making connections now where people don't really care what you do. They're just okay. They just want to be with Lacy. Like, we don't
Yeah,
need to have fighter pilot, hero, whatever, successful Lacy. We just, your wife just wants Lacy. I want you home and I want you engaged, and creating relationships like that where you can actually fall apart with people is going to be the thing that starts to build that core capacity of being able to be connected. It's a core need that we all have. And so many of us are struggle with boundaries because our core need of having a place to belong hasn't been met. And this being able to connect with people outside of what you do is one way to really help with that, to kind of take away the pressure. And it just takes a process.
it does. Speaking of processes, one of my coaches, she did an outstanding job of, first of all, identifying that in me. And speaking of zero boundaries, I would take calls on the way home thinking that I could get it knocked out. But because I needed to fill these cohorts, I'm trying to like manage everything, right? And I'm used to high performance, right? No problem. I'll take this call on the way home. Well, this veteran has got a lot going on. All of a sudden, I'm getting into their story, and I'm like, oh, I can't hang up on this person. My windows are halfway down. My son, who's one at the time, sees me, dad, dad. Like, all this stuff is coming because I didn't create enough margin on the way home to not answer that phone call because I could do one more. I just wanted to serve, lead, inspire people. Like, all my core values are just coming out at me. The values I set for myself, and that doesn't speak family first. I didn't think of them on that call. I didn't think of the veteran really and truly to give them the space they needed. So it was an amateur move out of good intention, but the
Yeah.
impact was not the one that we wanted. And so my coach did this for me. To your point, Lacey, you need to take the Superman suit off. I want you to put on the Clark Kent song when you drive home, and do not pick up the phone. So
I
I
love it.
literally, I literally, whether it's Fleetwood Mac Dreams or now it's any song, it was a grounding song, something intentional at first to set the
Yeah.
habit, and now on the drive home, I don't pick up the phone, especially if it's a random number that you could help, but like, is your boundary family first, and
Yeah.
is your behaviors lining up with your beliefs? Because your belief should tell everybody your behavior should tell me what you believe. Faith
Believe.
shows up in behavior. So it wasn't working that way. So boundaries, to your point, some tools there, and getting coaching has helped me a lot. So I'm not embarrassed to say that no matter how well you think you can do it. Sometimes slowing down and getting some advice from people like you, Wired to Lead, this podcast, like listen to some of these to be able to slow down and do it the right way. It's a lot better than doing it the wrong way.
Yeah. We get sucked into kind of this lie that, oh, just one more thing, but we don't
Hmm.
realize that the quality of one more thing goes way down, and let's just save it for tomorrow.
Yeah, and again, it's a mentality too. Like maybe you watch the new Top Gun Maverick, and he's trying to get Mach 9. That's all he had to get, right? He did it, and he said just a little bit more, and then man, he's in a parachute. So, you know, yeah, your values, and if I value family, I need to create that margin to value them, and I'm learning that every day, and I'm glad because the connection with my family is the biggest one I want to have.
It's the thing that lasts. And, there was a recent book that came out. The Harvard researchers made, or it's the longest running study of people's happiness. And the conclusion is that at the end of the day, it's not your job, it's not your stuff, it's your connections, period. And so, and then, well, and so it's why our core need is to connect. So when we prioritize connections, then it actually opens our brain to be able to do the things at work and to be successful and to do all those things. But at the end of the day, it comes full circle to those connections. And it's so simple. I work with people and I know it's simple, and yet it's so difficult to prioritize making sure you have relationships where you can be brutally honest and still be loved and cherished. Doesn't mean they have to approve of what you're doing, but there's going to be open arms every time. And you don't have to be a performer. You don't have to be doing something for them, which is often a hard thing uh, to try.
Yeah, I agree, and I'm not sure if this is a good point or not, but from my personal experiences, even if it's a hired coach, if it's reaching out to you to get one of those sessions going, I hired actually he's free, but he's become a close friend. It was a move I know I needed to make, and he's a mentor. Was a high level employee at a very well known organization, and did some things that he would handle like ransoms and different things for a large company that had plants around the world. And he had so much credibility. I didn't know that in the beginning, but I have created a once a month meeting with someone that wants to meet with me, invested me, and I can say anything. And there's not going to be judgment, and there may not be encouragement, but he's going to be like, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
and he's really being the mentor he wished he had when he was in his 30s and 40s. And but those relationships, my advice for others and to myself to maintain is you have to be intentional. You have to set them up. They don't just happen. I got a best friend from 1996 that I call almost every morning on the way to work, and he and I, like, we could laugh at each other, but we're always going to be best friends, and that's another relationship. But if you don't have those, you got to be intentional. They're not going to happen on their own. I think it was 2023. We were talking about loneliness is going to be this next epidemic, and I believe it's here. I
yeah.
believe people suffer because of loneliness and the starving for connection over anything else. So you have to be intentional. We teach that in our social well-being module, but we have to be intentional with relationships if we really want them.
Absolutely. I could not agree more. One piece of your story that I just keep coming back to is the full circleness of it. How you started out in ROTC, and then that was kind of where you came back to. And then you also said something about, it was your leaders who empowered you. And I thought that is the definition of leadership, right? When I asked you to say, tell us about your leadership journey, and you automatically pointed to your leaders who
Mhm.
got you on that journey. And so just I guess I'm just wondering, do you have any advice for leaders today who want to be that kind of a leader, who empower the people around them, who lift them up?
Yeah, I think there's a missing element that will bring it completely full circle that I wanted to tell here. And I think the advice that would kind of set up that story would be good leaders get you to believe in them, but great leaders get you to believe in yourself. I think
Mm.
leadership is not manipulation for personal gain with the influence, but it is inspiring people for the better good, for their mission, for themselves, right? Um, so a missing part of the story, when I first went to school, ROTC, my uncle Melvin was Major Allen, and he was at that detachment teaching ROTC. He picked me up in this old Toyota truck, and he probably had Copenhagen in his mouth, and he took me to ROTC. And when I got commissioned, he is the person that commissioned me. He was the leader that believed in me more than I believed in myself. And of course, Sergeant Riffy and all the people there, they just rallied around me. Well, he gave me his service dress, and I wore it on commissioning day. I wore it when I was promoted to lieutenant colonel in 2018 in my hometown on the bridge that I rode a bicycle on growing up. And I wore that same service dress. He promoted me, and he ranked out at major, and I was now lieutenant colonel, probably the highest ranking in my family. And what an honor to just carry it a little farther forward. Fast forward to my retirement last year, I'm wearing the same uniform that my uncle Melvin wore for 20 years, that I wore for 20 years, at a full circle moment where he's there hugging me at my retirement. And you'll get to a point where it's a privilege and honor to do for others what was done to you that was positive, that got you to believe. So when I go and speak as a keynote speaker, I talk three things. One, um, you gotta you gotta be able to believe in yourself, whether you're borrowing it. I tell that story a little bit. And then number two, you got to believe in others. And number three, you have to believe in something bigger than yourself. Like it can't just be about you. It has to be about the others or reasons bigger than you. For me, my faith, my family, all those things. So I think a leadership lesson would be, it's not about you. Good leaders will get you to believe in them, but like great leaders get you to believe in yourself. Get people to believe in themselves, and it starts by believing in them.
Mm. I love it. I'm not sure there's a better note to end on. That is, and so kind of the closing note is find someone that will raise you up if you're looking to be raised up, and if you have been, then pay it forward to those around you. I
You
love
got
that.
it.
So
That's
I was
it.
going to ask you what your, as our closing, we always talk about what you want your leadership legacy to be. Do you have anything to add to that? I feel like that's it.
You know, I would, I've already lived a whole life as a military officer, and I'm starting this whole new one. But I think anything legacy or anything like that is in leadership is going to be when I'm on my deathbed, who's around my deathbed. Hopefully, my wife still likes me, and she's there. And then my son, like, you know, leadership starts with yourself, and then it should be the legacy you leave of those around you, how you made them feel, what you're known for, and so I hope that it carries on my family with my wife and my son is the biggest hope there. So that would be it. Um, they're only going to remember me for like 3 generations, so I better make it count. But I think the biggest legacy is pouring in to my family, especially my son.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
Lacy, thank you so much for being here. I think your stories were had to have touched a lot of our listeners. And so just thank you for that, and want to cheer you on for the work that you're doing at Camp Southern Ground and just with all the veterans. And we just wish you well and thank you.
Julia, thank you, and I wish you best of luck with Wired to Lead. I know you're going to crush it, and thanks for investing in me and believing in me and having those conversations. And please continue the content because it's going to gain so much momentum and it's still pouring into us. So thank you for allowing me to be on here today. Appreciate you, Julia.
Absolutely. All right. We'll talk to you next time.
All right.